Hi guys, welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. This week we have got like a Q&A. So I've put out on Instagram to all the followers on the page. It said like Q&A, ask me some questions, I'll get some answers. But normally I do typically quite quick answers, 30 seconds. But I thought I would pick out the best questions and do more of an in-depth answer to give more information and knowledge. And obviously, as this podcast sort of progresses, let me know, in the bottom of the comments, guys, what you actually like, what sort of formats you enjoy, what works well. Feedback's good for me to know that, and then we can actually push this on and grow it out, so as well as getting guests on. So, question number one, good question this as well. It's how to overcome imposter syndrome. Now, first of all, some of you might not fully know what imposter syndrome actually is, and it's the self-doubt and it's the like anxiety and the worry or the concern, whatever label you want to put of it, on yourself, like, and it's second guessing your abilities. And I think the first thing that's most important to say is that everyone has that. That's not a unique thing to an individual. Like every single high achiever has an element of that. Everyone doubts themselves at times. Everyone second guesses themselves on decisions they've made, all that type of stuff. So it's really, really common. It's not a taboo thing. It's very genuine out there all the time. Now, I think the biggest thing for me is when you understand what that is, you've got to understand that you've got to look at what you've done in the past. Like if you've got proven success in something and you know that you can deliver on that, you know what you're good at, you know your abilities, then you may as well just turn that voice off as the imposter syndrome, because you've got proven data, if you like, from yourself that you know that you've done it, you've achieved it, so you can do it again, you can replicate. It's a waste of time worrying about stuff that you know you can do because you've done it over and over again. Now, the flip side is of imposter syndrome is that when you're trying to do something new or something you haven't done before, that's when it gets a bit trickier because you haven't got that sort of memory of something else you've done or you've achieved that's very similar. But what I would say is that if you regularly get imposter syndrome, you just have to look back to the fact of who you are as a person. And are you a person that delivers on what you say you're going to do? And that even if you get things wrong, you might have previous experiences. We've all done loads of things wrong. If you've done things wrong in the past, but you know you're the right type of person to actually make them right, then again, just be up for it and be up for making the mistake and accept it, because everyone makes mistakes as well. Like there's no one that's done anything without making a shit ton of mistakes along the way. It's part of it. It's part of the road. Like failure leads to success. Unfortunately, that's how it is. Like people like to dress it up and make it out that it's all glamorous and business is easy and you're cruising. You can just, go from win to win to win to win to win. Even big businesses, huge businesses doing hundreds of millions of pounds, they're always dealing with problems. Like it's part of the game, and there's always going to be an element of doubt from any like management team, owners, whatever, any directors. There's always going to be that little monkey on the shoulder. So it's never going to go anywhere. So you've got to handle it yourself and understand really what your strengths are, what your abilities are, and how much you actually trust yourself to tackle and solve whatever you're sort of worrying about or whatever you're anxious about. And I think the biggest thing with it is that when you do understand your own strengths, your own abilities, then you can see your blind spots and you might need to get some help with that or other people's input to actually give you the confidence or the, like genuine understanding of the problem or the situation that you're sort of worrying about in business, because it is a lonely place as well. That's probably the biggest issue when you first start in business. It's all you on your own. So you've only got you between your two ears thinking about all the different problems and all the different scenarios, where sometimes just a different input and a different perspective can just relax that and just calm that anxiety down and that worrying and that sort of overthinking. So you're never going to overcome it. That was the original question. How do you overcome imposter syndrome? You never will. So I think step one is accepting that and then learning how to cope with it. Like you have to learn how to cope with it and learn how to manage it basically as an ongoing thing. That's the same thing with stress. The label of stress is always going to be there. And the amount of stress that you're able to manage and tackle and keep on your shoulders is going to be linked to the amount of success you're going to have, unfortunately, because every problem that you solve, you're going to create another one. You know, when you start a business, you need to win work. Then you start winning work. Then you've got to worry about delivering it. Then you need to grow a team. That's quite stressful. You hire the wrong people. You have to get new people. You fire people. You hire new people again. Then you hit cash flow issues because someone doesn't pay you, and then all of a sudden you earn loads of money. And then, you know, and you build a bigger ship that you've got to run and fuel. So the stress never goes anywhere. The imposter syndrome never goes anywhere. So you've got to learn to live with it and manage it. And, you know, trust yourself. If you know you can deliver on it and you know you're a man of your words, then it won't be an issue. But if you've got deeper rooted issues where you don't do what you say you're going to do, or you have let yourself down in the past, then they're the things you need to look at and address why you work like that and what the fuck's going on, because that's an issue too complicated for me to give a generic answer to on a podcast. But sometimes the hardest thing in the world is to actually look at yourself in the mirror and go, okay, where did I go wrong? Where did I go right? How do I not do that ever again? So that'd be my advice on that. Question 2. How do I stop being too nice to customers and staff? Now, as a business owner, especially in construction, you really got to work with your clients. You've also really got to work with your employees. It is a relationship business through and through, like end of, like there's no question about it. It's all about relationships on every single level, because from the client side, things always go wrong on jobs. It's just the nature of the beast. Something always changes, something always goes wrong. It's just how it is. That communication and handling the client is paramount all the way through, from the very moment they've sent an inquiry to you, you've priced the job, you're delivering it. That relationship with that client the whole way through is so important, because you can do so much good work. If you fall at the last hurdle, the customer just remembers you as being a bit of a dickhead and gives you a bad name, and that's not what you want. You know, you want every single customer, ideally, to be singing really good things about you. Sometimes you're never going to please everyone. Again, nature of the beast. It's just how it is. But there is a line of being too nice, like at the detriment of not making the money that you should, or swallowing up things that was actually the client's mistake or change or extra or variation, whatever way you want to put it. You've got to be in control of it, because otherwise you will get your pants pulled down. You will get walked all over. So there is a line. And for me, it's all about, look, you bend over backwards for anyone, whether that's a customer or a staff member, but you never want to be bending over forwards and taking it right up the arse. Like, that's when you're in the problem. And what I mean by that, you know, things like extras on jobs, yeah. If clients need extras on jobs and it's a tiny little thing that you can actually absorb within the labor that you've allowed to do the job, and, you know, the material is not really going to cost you anything because you already got them somewhere else, or vice versa, whatever. It's a real low cost extra to you, but to them it's an extra. Try and do it for free. You don't need to charge for that, but you can still list that on your invoice, extra one, whatever it was, and then just put free of charge, because then it's listed and it's recognized. We did do that for free for you. And when you've got a job and you've got loads of extras, if you've got 2 or 3 that you've done for free, and then you've got one that you're actually charging for, because it's a genuine extra, it's going to cost you an extra £1,000, £2,000, whatever, then they can't really argue with that, because you've listed all the other stuff that you have done for free. Because people forget when you've done stuff for free as well. That's the key thing with people, is they forget the nice bits, but they only remember the painful bits, like when they've got to actually fucking pay for stuff. So always just make it known that you have done it for free, and they know that exactly. But you do have to be firm with customers, because they will always try things like, well, I thought that was included. And the problem people have, which is very common, is that when your paperwork's not in order and you haven't put on your quote exactly what you are doing, it's just open for interpretation. So this is why you really need to know and have all your facts and figures in place. When you originally quote a job, you're going, this is line by line, bang, 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 bang. That's what the job includes. So that if an extra comes up and it's not in one of those lines, it's obvious it's an extra, because it's not written in black and white. Now, the flip side is it takes longer to do that. You need to know how to do it properly, but it's going to save you a lot of shit in the long run, and your professional company working that way. Because without it, you always run into the road of, well, you said you were going to do this, you said you were going to do that, you know, you promised me this, and it's he said, she said, and you're never going to win that argument. You're never going to come across good in that argument. You're always going to come off as the bad guy, because if they're bullshitting and they think you said something, whether you did or not, in their minds, they're always right. So it's a major issue. But what I've really found is that just constant, decent communication is the main thing with clients. And when you flip that to like employees will take the piss out of you, whether they're subcontractors or they're actually genuine on the books. It's as true as the saying is. A lot of these sayings are so true. Give people an inch, they'll take a yard. It's 100% true. Like, I love to do as much as I can for people, but you've got to keep a firm rope, because, you know, the minute it's like, okay, you can go home half an hour early today. There's a tenner for this, there's 20 quid for that, put a bit more on your timesheet for this because you've done a good job, blah, 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 blah. I'll pay you more for working weekends, I'll pay you more for working late nights. It then all starts becoming expected all the time. Like, you've got to set clear boundaries with your staff, because they will just try and take the piss. Fortunately, it's just the way of the world. It's how it is. People inherently will try and take the piss out of you. The more rope you give them, the more they'll fucking yank on it and try and pull it. And business is tough. You know, you're working to margins. You've got to protect those margins at all costs. And it's all these little bits that all add up over the end of the year. And the only person that loses is the business owner, you know, you guys listening to this. The only person that loses is you, because once the customer's got what they wanted, you're paying your staff what they want, and then they're happy to work for. The bit in the middle is yours, and that's what you're in business for. Like, you're in business to make money, and that should not be put to the bottom of the pile. Like, that's actually priority one in the business. Your staff are incredibly important to that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that at all, but you've got to toe the line all the time and protect the margin of the company and make sure that it's making money so that you can keep growing, you can keep investing back, and you can actually protect your employees by keeping them employed and keep paying them. And especially from a cash flow point of view, you're racking up money in the bank account all the time, so that if a freak thing happens, like a COVID or big customer doesn't pay you, you can still pay your staff. But your staff won't appreciate that. Your staff won't appreciate that you need to run a tight ship to keep money in the business, because you're ultimately protecting the business and them, because they are part of the business. So you've got to have that mindset on that sometimes when you're being a bit tough for people, you're doing it for the right reasons and the right intentions. Now, the thing that I see all the time is that people can go the other way and they're just a dick to their staff, and they're just not going to stay. They're not going to want to work for you. You've got to make people feel part of the company. You've got to make them feel empowered, like to actually make some decisions themselves. And because humans like that. Humans like a bit of self-control. They like to be told what to do, but you need to not micromanage them, because every time you do that, you're just pissing people off. And you've got to give them a responsibility and a sense of like ownership of being part of the company and proud to work for you and your company as well, because without that, it's just not going to work. You know, it's not going to happen. So you've got to set the standards that you want for your company. Agree, right, that is what I pay you. These are the extras for if you do this, this, and this. But when you've got staff that might be turning up late all the time, and you spoke to them a couple of times, you really got to pull that in. I know countless people that tolerate shit for a long time. And it's from anything. It's from being late all the time. It's from being on the phone all the time. It's from turning up like half asleep pissed. It happens all the time in construction, working with lads. You've got to pull that line in. And funny enough, I had a conversation with someone the other day, and he's had a guy, he was turning up like dopey all the time, probably on the puff. And he sorted himself out at the minute. And I said to him, the moment he then comes in next, because it will happen again, he'll have a rebound one night, he'll go on a bender, will come in. So that day it happens, send him home straight away. Even if it cocks you up and it slows the job down, send him home straight away. You've got to keep a tight line, because all that's doing is showing that it's acceptable if you don't do that. And all the other lads and all the rest of the team or whatever you've got are all seeing that, well, it's right for them. They get away with that. They get away with that. No one should get away with anything more than the next person in the company. There's got to be a set mutual respect for everyone, because that's what people are doing. When staff start taking the piss, they're taking the piss out of you and everyone else. It's not fair and it's not right. You will never grow a great team if that's allowed. Now, the flip side is, look, if someone's done it and it's a complete one-off, then you've got to work with them and understand and question and go, well, what's the matter? You all right? And be a caring, good, considerate boss to question that and go, is there anything you need help with? What's the matter? That's the juggling act all the time. And things like when you need lads to work late, if you're a dick all the time, they're not going to want to do that. But if you really need them to do that and you've costed the job properly and you're going to pay them extra, then you're going to have to. You know, you can't just expect to own people either, which I think is another common thing in trades, construction, whatever, is just because someone works for you, you feel like you can own them as an owner, and that's not the right attitude to have. You've got to remember that aside from all the numbers and then the revenue and the profit at the end of the year, that only happens because of the staff and the team you've got. So you have to treat them well. So it's a juggling act the whole time of treating them well, but keeping the line tight when it starts getting a bit too much and then people start taking the piss. And once you do that, and once you just set that ground, it just makes it for an easier place to go, because then your staff understand the rules as well. And I think that's actually the hardest thing when you become a business owner, is that you have to turn the hat on of you're actually a bit like their teacher as well. Like, and you have to set the standard, the rules, a bit like being at school. Like, there's set times you start the lessons, there's fucking set breaks at set times. These are the rules you've got to adhere to. And it's hard. It is hard, because that's not really what you're naturally good at. And it's a bit boring, let's be honest. But people have to be structured and there has to be rules put in place. It's just how it is. You've got to adopt that. But if people are genuinely taking the piss out of you and you know they are, then you've got to question, right, what are you doing wrong? And what are they doing wrong? And are they the right fit for your company? If they're not, get them out and move on and get the next people in. It just has to be done. It's just part of business, unfortunately. Next question, number 3, how to build a £1 million a year business. Now, reading into that could be a dangerous question, because for me, revenue, it's got some relevancy to it, but it's not the be all and end all. Like, it's actually about what you want to earn and take out of the business a year, what life you want as well, because you're going to have massive difference and variance depending on what level you want to take that business to. It's all well and good saying you turn over £1 million a year, but if you don't make any money out of it, what's the point? It's pointless. And the variance on different margins and what you earn out of that is going to be like hugely different. So for me, just treating that as an open question, I'd be going, well, if you want to build £1 million a year business, I'd be saying you want to be working to at least like a 20% margin across the board of all the jobs that you do. If you do, that's going to equal a 200 grand like gross profit. Now, at that level of £1 million, it's not just going to be you though. So you're going to have some overhead, you're going to have an office likely, cars, vehicles, that type of stuff. So I would actually flip the question and go, well, if you wanted to earn like 200 grand a year from it, that's typically the reason people say that's why they want to do £1 million a year business. That's why I'm saying it, is that you're probably likely going to need to earn about 300 grand a year, because you're probably going to have about 100 grand, give or take. This is just rough figures, just for the purpose of the question. 100 grand of expenses to be able to deliver that type of work. You might have an admin girl, a 25 grand a year admin girl, that type of thing. Maybe a lackey in the office, or a bit of a, like, not contracts manager, someone buying, or just like your right-handed man, that type of thing. A cheap office, a car, a phone, that type of stuff. So if you imagine that's 100 grand a year, give or take, if you want to make 200, you've got to make 300 grand gross. So if you're sticking to that 20% net margin, gross margin, sorry, you're going to need to be doing like £1.5 million a year to get that. So that's where you need to really understand your numbers, because that's what's most important. Like, you can't just wing it and say, I want to make £1 million a year business. It's like, well, why? What's the plan? What's the fucking reason for doing that? So, and it makes a big difference, because when you understand what costs you're likely to incur, you know, you really need to be doing like a £1.5 million a year business to actually have 200 grand a year clear at the bottom as net for you at the end. And to do that, it's quite simple. Do the maths first. Once you understand that, okay, £1.5 million a year, 20% margin, that's what we're sticking to for all the jobs that we price out. First things first is get your clear head around those numbers. I would then divide that and look at that per month. So if you're doing £1.5 million a year revenue business is the goal, divided by 12, 125 grand's worth of work every month you've got to win. You've got to know your numbers, step one, without fail. Like everyone goes wrong, and the first thing they do is, right, I'm going to get a website done, I'm going to fucking get my logo done. Fuck all that. You need to understand the business from the top level. What are the actual numbers, and how are we going to work back and get that? Because when you know you need to win 125 grand's worth of work a month, to do that, you're likely going to need to price 2 or 3 times that a month to actually win that level of work. You're likely to be closing like 30 to 50% of the work you price, depending on how good you are, depending on how good your marketing is and your sales, your relationships. That's really where you want to be going at. So you need to be pricing 250, 375,000 pounds a month of work to hit that. That's now your objective, and that's your goal. That's what you want to be aiming at as a business owner. That these are the numbers that you need to fucking know. They need to be printed in your head. Right, how am I going to price that? Once I fully understand that and go, right, I need to win 125 grand a month. For you, you can apply that to whatever trade you're in or whatever you do as a business. You will know how many jobs that equates to. So if you're a general builder doing extensions, that could be 1 extension a month. That's not many jobs to win. That's quite simple, really. But if you're doing like electrical work, for example, and the average ticket of what you do is like 10 grand, you know you need to be winning like 12, 13 jobs a month to be able to do that. So it's a lot more. The problems are different. The problems are way more different. Trying to win 1 job versus trying to win 12 or 13, it's quite a big difference from a sales and marketing perspective. So again, you need to understand that. How many clients do you actually need a month to be hit that? And what's the journey and the roadmap of hitting that? Once you're really drilled into that, for me, doing a building company, 125 grand a year, the very next step from doing the numbers is actually going to speak to all the people that I know. And you've got it, you know, we've all got our black books, and I'm blessed with a really good black book of contacts, but you will know a shitload of people as well. The very first step you need to do is tell every single person what you're doing and what you can offer. So if you are setting up a general building contractors or you know, doing extensions, just for an example, you would need to fucking go out and actually shake some hands and tell every single person you know, this is what I'm setting up, this is what I do. If you know of anyone who needs an extension doing, give me a shout, because you've got far more chance of getting work from the networks that you already know now, rather than trying to go in cold marketing to people that you don't know. Like, relationships are everything. And it's things like architects, it's things like other contractors you might be working with if you are electrical, or you're a carpentry company, or you're a tiling company, whatever, scaffolding. People that have got all that work, they're other businesses. So you need to go and meet them and shake hands with them. And I would just spend all my time doing that. I would try and meet as many people as I can in a day of people like that. So again, if you are an electrical company, I would be going to speak to all the big main builders in the area, all the other big main subbies in the area that have already built a decent sized business, and go and build the relationships with them. If you just did that for 3 months, you'll be pricing and winning enough work 3 months down the line, guarantee it. Whereas I think where people go wrong is they'll go, right, I'm going to set up a website and post it on Facebook to a few people, and then just sit there and wait for it to come in. It's not going to come in. It's not going to happen. Like, the work's not going to come to you when you're very first starting. And this is what gets missed and messed up with the whole, like, life's easy, business is easy world. It's not how it is. You've got to go out and get it. You've got to go out and get it. You've got to put yourself out there and meet people and introduce yourself and shake hands with people and go after it. Like, it's not going to come to you. I wouldn't even be worrying about things like a fucking logo and websites immediately. That's the next couple of steps. But the quicker you go out and go and speak to someone, you could win a job. You could genuinely win a job before all that shit's taken care of. I would actually try and win a job first, get some cash coming in, and then spend the money on the website and all that type of stuff and generate it. If I'm very starting today, that would be very different. I'd pump a shitload of money into websites, marketing, SEO from the very off. But for someone who's just starting and trying to grow that, that's how I would do it. Like, build the relationships and get in. Then the next step is actually forming a team. It's a chicken and egg with construction, because you need the work to get the lads on board, but you need the lads to deliver the work. Now, you can't go and get lads and subbies lined up unless you've got nothing. So unfortunately, you're going to have to go through the pain of winning some work and then shitting yourself a little bit, going, how am I going to deliver this? But again, it comes back to, if you're a decent, honest, good person and you're great with people and you're building relationships and you've got a lot of people you can call on to help you, you will solve that problem. And it is chaos. It is absolute chaos. And you do have sleepless nights going, fuck, how am I going to get a contractor for this? How am I going to find a chippy for this? Who am I going to get to use to do this? But you have to piece it together and go through that. And once you've done it a couple of times, you just keep using those people, you find new ones, and you're off. So again, relationships, you need the relationships with your subbies, your lads, all the time. And I say this to people, even when you're in business and you're set, you always want to be looking at who your next employees are going to be, your next hires. You should always be looking for that, because the moment you need them, it's easier to have people you know you can call on, rather than just like going, who am I going to get to do that? Doesn't matter what size you get to, you're always going to need more employees all the time. It's always going to be the bottleneck, is people. People, always the bottleneck. So always focus on that. Once you're doing all that, once you've like got up and running with that, you know your numbers, you've gone out and you're genuinely speaking to people every single day and trying to form relationships and connect with people, and just forming new, like I said, just new relationships. Then you can get a nice, quick, simple, easy website made. Either someone you know, you can spend $1,000 and get a nice, simple, clean cut website. You can use images that aren't specifically yours at this stage. There's plenty of stuff on the internet of being clever about it. Get a quick logo done, you're off and you're out. And that's it. That's all it actually is. You need to just be focused 100% on people, marketing, and sales. Now, when you start, you haven't got a shit ton of money to pump into marketing. So you've got to be a bit more creative, which is, like I said, the old school, going to meet people and speak to people. But using things like your Facebook, your LinkedIn to your advantage, they're all there for free. That's free stuff, and you're all connected to people. And you've just got to start posting and getting used to it and pumping and getting your name out there. And before you know it, you win a job and you're off, and you start building and building and building. But I think people just really delay actually doing that type of stuff, because you're waiting for the perfect storm, you're waiting for the perfect job to come in. You're waiting when you've got all your ducks in a row, you've got all the labor. It's never going to happen. So you've got to accept that and go on with it. But if you know your numbers and you're just focused 100% on, I need to win this amount of work every month, then you just push on until you keep doing that. That'd be my advice for actually someone getting started. Next question. Number 4, what key things should I focus on to grow my business? So I think this question is coming from a place of people that are already in business. You've already been doing it, maybe 2 or 3 years or maybe longer. What do you need to focus on to grow it? And for me, you just need to categorize it into 3 areas and then see where your deficiencies lie. Number 1, it's your level of knowledge. Like, do you know what you're doing to grow that business? Like, you have to know what to do properly. There's an element of taking it as it comes and winging it a little bit in business. It's a bit of part of it. But the better the knowledge you've got at the very front end, it just makes everything else easier, because you don't know what you don't know. So you need to get informed. You need the education, and whether that's like from spending time reading books or learning from other people or like a mentorship or whatever, you need to get the right information first. because the right information at the very bottom is going to dictate the growth and the trajectory of growing that business. If you've got shit information at the start, you're then making bad decisions from that information. You're just going to dwindle along. Whereas if you've got the best information, then you apply that information, which is actually the third part of what I'm about to say, you're going to have a much smoother, easier journey to get to where you want to get to. So step one is the knowledge. What knowledge do you need to grow that business? Step two is what is step two? Forgotten it's your skill set. It's your skill set. Lost my place. Knowledge, then it's your skill set, because it's your skills as the business owner that you put into place are going to determine how much, because a lot of people actually know a lot of shit, but don't have the skills to actually make it happen. Like, a lot of people can read a book and go, oh yeah, that makes sense. But that's very different to actually doing it in the real world. Like, give you an example, like you can read a book on sales, for example, but unless you're a really, positive, happy, good person who can communicate in a very good way, who can hold themselves and speak properly and actually properly sell in real life, that information is not worth a wank. Like, to know and not to have the skills to do it is to not to know. Like, it's pointless. So you've got to start looking at your skill sets around your business and where your weak spots are. And it's totally acceptable and normal to not be the skilled at everything. No one is amazing in all areas. There's so many different areas of the business, from marketing, sales, finance, leadership, management, being the bad guy. You're not going to be good at all that type of stuff. So you've really got to choose and stick your flag in and go, well, what are your skill sets as the owner? And you'll know yourself what you're naturally good at, because I'll tell you, the easiest way to work out what you're naturally good at is actually the stuff you enjoy doing. Now, when you don't like doing something, it's normally because you're not very good at it. Whereas when you're good at something, you're like, I'll do that. You put your hand up. So you have to start looking at yourself and just questioning yourself and go, right, what am I really good at, and where am I actually going to focus my efforts in my actual skills as a business owner? And it's perfectly acceptable as a business owner to not be the best at sales or not be the best at numbers, and eventually getting help with that and getting other people involved to actually complement the skill sets. Now, the best team is people that are strong in all areas. Like, that's what builds a winning team. Like, a team is not 2 or 3 people with all the same skill sets. That's where it all crumbles. If all 3 of you are good at sales, you're all going to be in conflict all the time because you're all trying to be the same people. Whereas if you've got a winning team where someone's excellent at sales and customer communication and that type of stuff, paired with someone who's excellent at delivery, operational, knows exactly what he's doing, everything's organized, nothing, it's not chaos, you know exactly what order you're going to be doing things, and then paired with someone who's bang on it with the numbers and finances and that type of stuff, then you can grow an amazing company. But a deficiency in one of those, you're going to hit some blind spots along the way. So I think that's really important to really understand and evaluate your whole time and going, right, what are your skill sets as a person? Because knowledge, skill sets, and lastly, the third point on that is actually the application. It's the application of the knowledge and your skills. Because believe it or not, some people are fucking lazy. Some people dwindle things or put things off. And if you're not applying the skills and the knowledge that you've got, or you've gained, or you've paid for, whatever, it's just pointless. Nothing happens without taking the actual action to get and move things forward. And that's why I always say, that's why with business, you've got to really understand, what are you actually going after? Like, what numbers are you actually chasing for the reason for you as the owner? Like, what do you want to earn? Because that's going to be the thing that actually dictates the level of action you take. Because if you genuinely want more, you'd be taking the action all the time to push on and get that, Whereas a lot of people say they want stuff, but don't actually do the work to do it. So for me, that makes me question, well, how much do you really want it then? Because if you really wanted something, you would do what it takes to get to it. And that's got to be your blind spot. You've got to recognize that if you're constantly saying you want something, but you're not actually taking the action and the application to doing it, you as the owner's got to self-reflect again and go, well, why is that? Why are you doing that? And start questioning yourself. But for me, it's always going to come back to those three areas to grow a business. It's the knowledge, it's the skill sets you've got available to you, and then it's actually the application and the delivery of it. And they're the three main areas and keys that you need to focus on. And I would just put that on a bit of paper, go, right, knowledge, where am I lacking knowledge? What don't I know? Then the skills, what skill sets am I lacking? What do I need to push this forwards? And then application, what problems have I got on that? Like, do I need some help with that as well? And that's a nice, easy, just three-part way of looking at it in a simple way, rather than just heads in the clouds guessing. It's nice just to do that in a nice, simple format. Last question, number 5. What's the best way to tackle the shit days when things are going wrong? Look, great question. Good question. And I think it's not really spoken about a great deal because everyone likes to keep their head down and go, yeah, it's okay, it's fine. I think what people need to really grasp is that you're going to have more shit days than good days. Unfortunately, that is what it is. Even the days that are amazing and you might win a massive job or you might make a bit of money on something that's pulled off, you've been working something a long time, the next day inevitably is probably going to be a shit day where something's gone wrong. Like the highs don't last that long, whereas sometimes the shit can seem to last for a long time. And it's just part of the game. It's part of the business. And again, I think it's a bit like the imposter syndrome that I answered earlier. It's something you just got to accept and take on the chin that that's how it is. Not every day is going to be amazing. You're never, ever going to run a business and go in and go, yep, today's excellent. Everything's gone perfect. Something's going to go wrong on a lot of times with a very small level. And you learn to deal with that as you learn to manage stress and problems. That you learn to not sweat that type of stuff and you accept it. But there will be times when big stuff happens, when someone might leave or a job's gone majorly wrong and it's cost you a lot of money. It just happens. It's just part of it. It's not unique to you. It happens to every single person. Even the big companies, you think they've got their shit together. A lot of the times they're running in chaos. It's a universal thing we have to accept. So for me, I always like to try and frame it and go, well, if something's gone wrong, you have to just think, is this going to matter in a week's time? And most stuff isn't going to matter in a week's time because you know the solution already. You know what to do. It's just a process. You've got to do it. If it's that, then why the fuck you spend any time worrying about it? But then when you flip that onto like bigger problems, that let's say something's cost you 50 grand because something's gone really tits up, it's not nice, but you have to just go, well, is this going to matter in a year's time or 5 years' time? The answer is probably going to be no. And you have to just push through it and get on with it. It's just part of it. And the thing is, when a problem's happened, it's not going anywhere. So you can either sulk and, struggle through it and have a real shit time and take it home with you, or you can just accept it and go, well, do you know what? It's a mistake. Either you made the mistake or it's happened. It's got nothing to do with you, but it's a genuine just mistake, like a bank fraud thing or something like that. Someone's made a payment and taken money from you. It happens. You have to just accept it and go, well, it's not going to matter in the long run. And the quicker you do what you have to do to get over it and move on and wipe your mouth, the better. It's pointless dwelling on stuff. Like, it is a waste of everyone's time and energy to just constantly have the arsehole and just bury your head in shit, really, when you don't need to. Because the only person that suffers is you. So it's a choice, and it's your choice. Like, why do it? Yes, there is a time when you need to sometimes review like something that's gone really wrong and accept the facts. If you did genuinely cock it up yourself, you have to swallow it and take it and go, okay, I did that wrong, but this is what I'm going to do going forward, and actually be proactive about it. That's the best way of dealing with it. But they're never ever going to go wrong. Like they're never ever going to change. Sorry, like there's always going to be stuff going wrong. It's just how it is. So the best way to tackle it is just exactly that. Just evaluate it very quickly and be a bit emotionless about it, to be honest, and just review it and go, is this going to matter in a day, a week, a month, a year, 5 years? And if it's not, it's not. And just move on, crack on with the day. But I do think me just saying that it's something you just learn over time. Like I think when you're new to business, things can feel like the fucking end of the world when something's gone wrong. But the more years you get under your belt and the more stuff you've dealt with and when bigger problems happen and bigger problems and more bigger problems, the stuff that you used to worry about, you never worry about again because it's like so insignificant. So there is a bit of like business maturity, I like to call it, and personal development maturity where it doesn't even touch you. And for me now, most stuff doesn't really bother me, even if something's gone pretty wrong. I'm pretty mentally stable and level to be able to just go, oh well, whatever, and just crack on with the day because you've got to move forward all the time. You can't sit still and worry about it. So that would be my firm answers to that. So that's 5 questions. I hope that's been useful and helpful. If you do like it, like I say, comment below and let me know feedback, and I'll try and do like maybe one of these a month and maybe mix and match the episodes so there's a bit of more of a variety. If you did like this and you'd like some more sort of free training, there'll be a link below this video in the description. There's like a masterclass on business and for construction and trades on a variety of different stuff and how to make the money properly, a bit more in depth of what I've been talking about today. If that sounds of interest, click that and have a look. But yeah, let me know, like, subscribe and share and all that stuff, and I'll see you in the next one.